Every time that dog barks at night, I will be recording it and filing a violation notice the following morning. $100 per bark. Show me where in the governing documents it says you can charge per bark. Homeowners Association President Brenda Vance showed up at the front door of 4412 Oakmont Drive. She handed the homeowner a violation notice citing 47 individual bark incidents. They were recorded over the previous 3 nights at $100 per bark. It was a total of $4,700 in fines attached to his deed. She told him that the charges would continue accumulating nightly. They would not stop until his dog was either removed from the property or permanently silenced. She presented the bark count with the exact same confidence she applied to every fabricated notice she had ever issued. What she didn't know was that the homeowner had installed a professional audio monitoring system 2 weeks earlier. That system had recorded the actual ambient noise levels inside and outside his property every night since. The recordings showed her bark counts were wildly exaggerated. His dog had barely made a sound on most of the nights she cited. The recordings also showed that she had been walking past his property in the dark. She was doing it on multiple occasions in a way that had absolutely no innocent explanation whatsoever. Julian Hayes, 40, was a senior software architect for a technology firm based out of Seattle. He had lived at 4412 Oakmont Drive in the Pinecrest Meadows gated community of Bellevue, Washington for 3 years. Pinecrest Meadows sat in King County. It was an upscale neighborhood. The entrance had a staffed security booth. The home started at over $1 million, and the manicured streets gave a great impression. It gave the impression of a community where everything ran smoothly. Julian had bought his property after years of renting across 3 different cities. He had spent his first year renovating the back garden. He transformed it into a landscape retreat, complete with a stone patio. He was methodical, quiet, and had never once received a legitimate complaint from any neighbor on Oakmont Drive. Buster had been with Julian for 5 years. He was a large, well-trained Labrador retriever. He slept through most nights without incident. His absolute worst habit was simply stealing socks from the laundry basket. Buster was licensed, vaccinated, and registered with King County every year without fail. Julian had never received a noise complaint about Buster from any neighbor in 3 years of living in Pinecrest Meadows. Not one. That was until Brenda Vance decided he was a problem. Brenda Vance, 56, had been HOA president of Pinecrest Meadows for 8 consecutive years. She was known for finding enforcement opportunities where none reasonably existed. She was precise, relentless, and had an eye for the kind of detail that most people would simply let pass. She had noticed Buster the summer before. She made comments at 2 separate HOA meetings about the importance of pet owners being mindful of their upscale residential community. Nobody had taken it as a direct threat. Nobody took it as a threat because nobody had ever received a per bark fine before. That changed on a Thursday morning in September. Julian opened his mailbox and found a massive violation notice. The notice itemized 47 barks across 3 nights at $100 each. He read it, standing at his mailbox in his driveway. Then he read it again. Buster sat beside him, looking up at the notice with a confused expression. He had the expression of a dog that had absolutely no idea what any of this was about. Julian went inside, opened his laptop, and ordered a professional-grade audio monitoring system right before lunch. Before we go further, what city or country are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. We'd love seeing where you're tuning in from. And if you believe that fining a homeowner $100 per bark is absurd, if you think it's one of the most absurd things an HOA president has ever put in writing, hit that like and subscribe button. Come and join us right here on HOA Unhinged. The audio monitoring system arrived 2 days after Julian ordered it, and he had it running by the end of the week. He carefully set up 4 professional microphones around the property. One was inside the house near Buster's sleeping area. One was on the back patio. The other two were on the exterior of the property, pointing outward directly toward the street. The system recorded continuously through the night. It logged every single sound above a baseline threshold with a precise timestamp. Julian went to bed on the first night of recording, feeling prepared. He felt like he had done everything he reasonably could. Now, he just waited to see exactly what the audio data would show. The second violation notice arrived before the recordings had even finished their first week. It cited 31 additional barks across 2 nights. This added $3,100 to the accumulated balance against his deed. Julian pulled up his recordings for those exact same 2 nights and listened very carefully. Buster had barked only twice on the first night. He barked once at 2:17 a.m. for approximately 4 seconds. He barked again at 4:50 a.m. for about 3 seconds. On the second night, he had not barked at all. The gap between what Brenda had billed and what the recordings actually showed was not a rounding error. It was a complete fabrication. Julian saved every recording to 2 separate, secure cloud drives. Then he called a property rights attorney in Tacoma named Donovan Pierce. Donovan had handled HOA enforcement cases in King County for well over a decade. He reviewed the first 2 notices in a single sitting. Donovan told Julian the discrepancy was significant. It was enough to support a serious fraud claim on top of the standard HOA harassment argument. He told Julian to keep the system running every night without exception. He was instructed to document absolutely everything. The third and fourth notices arrived within the very same week. Each one cited a specific bark count that bore no relationship to what the recordings actually showed. The accumulated balance against Julian's deed had climbed past $9,000. Brenda had already begun referencing lien proceedings in her written correspondence. Julian paid nothing and said nothing publicly. He just kept the system running. Then, the recordings showed something Julian had not been looking for on 3 separate nights. Each one corresponded to a night Brenda had cited in her violation notices. The highly sensitive audio picked up footsteps on the pavement outside his property between 11 p.m. and midnight. Buster had responded to the sound on 2 of those nights with brief barking. The barking lasted under 10 seconds each time. The footsteps appeared and then disappeared in the direction of Brenda's house at 4418 Oakmont Drive. Julian immediately pulled his exterior camera footage. He found Brenda Vance walking slowly past his property in dark clothing on each of those 3 nights. She did not stop or appear to have any destination beyond the end of his fence line. He sent the full package to Donovan that evening. He sent the recordings, camera footage, violation notices, and a timeline laying everything out side by side. Donovan called him the very next morning. He said 4 words before anything else. "We have her now." Donovan Pierce requested time at the next Pinecrest Meadows quarterly board meeting and got it. Julian sat in the 3rd row of the Pinecrest Community Center on Maplewood Boulevard on a Tuesday evening. He sat with his laptop open and said nothing while Donovan stood up at the front of the room. Brenda Vance sat at the board table in her usual seat, wearing her HOA lanyard and holding her clipboard. She had the composed expression of a woman who had been running these meetings for 8 years. She had never once lost control of one. Donovan opened without preamble. He told the board he had been retained by Julian to address the violation notices filed against his client at 4412 Oakmont Drive. He stated that he had evidence he wanted to present directly to them. He connected his laptop to the room's display screen. He played the first audio recording. It was a full night of ambient sound from Julian's property. It was from one of the nights Brenda had cited in her notices. The recording showed Buster barking exactly twice. Brenda had billed for 19 barks. The entire room went dead quiet. Donovan played a second recording, and then a third. Each one corresponded perfectly to a specific violation notice she had issued. Each one showed only a fraction of the bark count Brenda had submitted. He then pulled up the high-definition exterior camera footage. It showed Brenda Vance in dark clothing walking slowly past 4412 Oakmont Drive. She was seen at 11:47 p.m., then at 11:52 p.m. on a different night, and finally at 12:08 a.m. on a third night. Buster was audible on the recording, barking briefly in direct response to the sound of her footsteps each time. Then Donovan told the board that his client was not the only one. He had been contacted by 3 other dog owners in Pinecrest Meadows. They had received identical per-bark notices from Brenda over the past 18 months. He placed their documentation on the table, one folder at a time. Brenda Vance had not spoken since Donovan began. She was looking at the display screen showing her own face. The camera timestamp read 11:47 p.m., and she had absolutely nothing to say about it. Donovan closed his laptop and looked directly at the board members. He said one sentence: "We will be filing in King County Superior Court on Friday." The lawsuit was filed in King County Superior Court on Friday morning, exactly as Donovan had promised. It named Brenda Vance personally and the Pinecrest Meadows HOA board as a collective body. The filing cited fabricated violation notices, fraud, harassment, and abuse of HOA authority. It highlighted the documented pattern of nighttime surveillance that had been used to provoke the dogs. She was literally provoking and then billing for the very barking she was complaining about. The 3 other dog owners Donovan had mentioned at the board meeting filed their own supporting complaints the same week. Each one came with their own documentation, their own discrepancies, and their own camera footage. The Pinecrest Meadows HOA board held an emergency session the following Monday. They removed Brenda from the presidency immediately. The meeting didn't even last 20 minutes. They hired an independent attorney to represent the board separately from Brenda. They also commissioned a full audit of every enforcement action she had taken during her tenure. The audit found that Brenda had issued per-bark fines to 11 separate homeowners over 3 years. She had collected over $60,000 in payments from residents who had paid rather than fight the corrupt system. Every dollar of it was now a permanent part of the legal record. The King County Superior Court ruled in Julian's favor on every single count 4 months later. Every fine issued against his deed was dismissed in full. The fraud finding was supported by the gap between the recorded barks and the billed amounts. It resulted in an order for Brenda to repay every fine she had collected from all 11 affected homeowners with interest. The damages awarded to Julian personally covered his legal fees. He also received additional compensation for the sustained harassment and the documented malicious provocation of his dog. Brenda Vance sold her home at 4418 Oakmont Drive before the repayment order was fully executed. The financial consequences of 11 homeowners' worth of refunds, legal fees, and civil damages left her bankrupt. She simply had no viable alternative. Julian Hayes turned off the audio monitoring system the week the judgment was entered. Buster slept through every night after that without interruption. He slept exactly the same way he always had before any of this started. If this story reminded you that documentation is the most powerful tool a homeowner will ever have, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. If you have ever been fined for something that never happened the way it was reported, drop your story in the comments because we want to hear it.